Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good morning. Yes, thank you very much. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Will you be making the presentation on behalf of European Rolling?
Yes, that would be me.
Okay. I'll give you the co-hosting rights closer to your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, honorable members, on this Wednesday, the 4th. Good morning to our staff members who have logged in, and good morning to those who are here to make a presentation. I see they've done something okay, which we appreciate. They already have their presentation starting in. Honorable members, we continue with our public hearings, public consultations with those who have indicated their desire to meet with us and make a presentation. We will take that this meeting, though in a virtual platform, is taking place within the precinct of Parliament, and therefore all the rules and what practices that apply to sittings in Parliament will also apply to our meeting. We would request honorable members to keep their mics muted and unless they want to actually indicate to speak. You may alert the secretary if I'm not able to see your hand going up, or you could also, I would accept any interjection of just mentioning that I have not been recognized, I want to speak, since sometimes there's a challenge here on the virtual platform. Welcome to you once more, and thank you very much. May I therefore indicate that the agenda has been forwarded to us, that we have two presentations today. One is already on the screen, and the second presentation will start shortly after this one has been completed. To start with, may I request that we then have a moment of silence to reflect on the day as we start and hope that everything goes well. Meditation, please.
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much, honorable members and the team that is supporting us, including the presenters. Ms. Machalamba, let's start with you. Indicate to this meeting the members of parliament who are present in this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Present is Dr. Lomo, Ms. Keko, Ms. Shabangu, Ms. Sine, Ms. Kumalo, Ms. Clark, Dr. Leroux, Mr. Mjadu, Mr. Van Staden, Dr. Klape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Welcome once more, honorable members. I see that Ms. Alexandra is already ready to kickstart. Ms. Alexandra, you have 30 minutes or less to tell us what you are here to share with us. Thereafter, the committee members will interact with you based on your presentation. You will then have to get a pen and paper to listen to all of us interacting with you so that you come once off to then reply, clarify, and answer those questions that members would have raised. So your 30 minutes starts now. Thank you very much. Over to you now.
Sorry, Chair. We are starting with Smokey Treats. Miss Alexandra is not from Smokey Treats.
Oh.
She is from European Rolling Paper Association.
Okay, I saw her.
We'll start with Mr. Adam.
Yes, good morning.
I was aware it's Smokey Treats, but I saw her switching her camera on. I thought she's the one who wants to start. I'm aware it's a Smokey Treats, and I was mistakenly making it owned by Miss Alexandra. Over to you, Smokey Treats.
Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, and first, just thank you for having us here today. Really is a privilege to have a chance to chat to some of the people who can actually really make a massive impact. Not only on the country and the smokers in the country, but the whole planet. And so really that's what we're here to draw attention to, is the environmental effects of the nicotine industry, and obviously what we propose to bring into the new law. So we're Smokey Treats. This is my co-founder, Davide. And we started working on this business about 10 years ago when we found out that cigarette butts are plastic. And so I'm just going to go into the problem that we're trying to solve. So Despite known health risks, I mean, everyone knows that cigarettes are bad for you, really bad for you. Still, more than 1 billion people around the world continue to smoke, and I believe it's around 17 to 22 million South Africans that smoke. And so, around the world, over 4.5 trillion butts, plastic cigarette butts, littered around the world each year. And I believe that's around 15 billion cigarette butts littered around South Africa each year, or 25 tons per week of plastic just thrown on the ground. I mean, for some reason, it's remained sort of socially acceptable to just throw these butts on the ground without a second thought. And the problem is that when you throw the butts on the ground and it rains, this water washes the butts down street drains into water systems, into rivers, and eventually into oceans. And they break up into tiny pieces of microplastic. Yeah, it can take sort of between 2 and 15 years for a regular cigarette butt to break up into plastic or microplastic, but it never actually biodegrades. So it never actually disappears. It just stays in our environment essentially forever. And this is a massive problem because it contaminates entire ecosystems from the bottom up. So when a small fish, say, eats a part of a cigarette butt, and a bigger fish eats that small fish, and a bigger fish eats that bigger fish, and eventually, obviously, we're at the top of the food chain. So we also get all of this microplastic, and that's got all kinds of negative health effects. From your hormones and clogging up your digestive system and all of that. I'm obviously not a doctor, but it's certainly not good at all. And so really that's the core issue that we're dealing with. And so, just to break down what's in a normal cigarette, I don't think many people know, what's in this thing. And so obviously it's got a plastic filter. It's generally called monoacetate or cellulose acetate. And yeah, I mean, big tobacco will tell you, oh, our butts are photodegradable, which doesn't mean biodegradable. So that's actually over here. So you can see again, it breaks up into tiny pieces of microplastic and never actually disappears. So that's photodegradable, not a good thing. And then, other than that, the tobacco in regular cigarettes generally has around over 600 artificial additives sprayed onto it. That's to make it more addictive, unnaturally smooth, easier to start, harder to quit, and generally, they're really unnecessary and shouldn't be there. That's also not to mention the environmental effect of these additives in the tobacco, combined with the paper around a regular cigarette is generally bleached. And so all of these chemicals in the tobacco and the paper, when you smoke the cigarette, all of that stuff ends up in the filter. And obviously when you throw it on the ground, it later leaches out into the environment. Again, really, really not good for the planet and everyone and everything living on it. And other than the cigarette stick itself, the packaging is generally laminated in plastic, coated in all kinds of synthetic inks and metal substances, and wrapped in plastic. So about 10 years ago, when we started working on this, we saw that no one in the entire world was offering anything that was better than this. And certainly we saw that big tobacco and even the sort of local players here weren't doing anything about the problem. So we started working on our own solution to this problem, not knowing anything about the cigarette industry. We were about 20 or 21 when we started the business. We kind of had to learn from the bottom up how this whole terrible industry works, and how to obviously sort of take it down from within, and that's kind of what we're doing. So we founded the business in 2015, and our mission is obviously to fight plastic pollution. We make woodland craft cigarettes. You may have seen it in Pick n Pay and Spar and Engine, etc. And essentially, it's got a non-plastic filter made out of wood pulp. We don't spray all of the additives onto the tobacco. We don't bleach the paper, and all the packaging is compostable. So it's all certified home compostable. So you can literally just throw the wrapper. So you'll see, here's a pack that I've got here. this thing that looks like plastic isn't plastic, and it's all made out of plants, and it can just compost at home in your garden. So given the lack of clean local manufacturers, we make them in Italy. And that's, simply because, pretty much all of the local manufacturers don't play ball with the law. And obviously we want to stay on the right side of it, which is also, I mean, really, really concerning, that we just don't have one clean manufacturer in South Africa. And so, yeah, we launched in 2018, at the end of 2018, and that made Woodlands the world's first non-plastic cigarette. And we're widely recognized as being the world's first non-plastic cigarette, which again is really surprising that, some of the world's biggest companies are tobacco companies, and they've got all the resources in the world to actually do something about the problem, but yet they don't. So yeah, anyway, then we sort of the cigarette ban, we were only about a year and a half into doing the business when the COVID cigarette ban came in. So, 6 months of no sales obviously derailed our business. And so, yeah, we took about 2 years to get back into the market. And so now we relaunched about a year ago and then launched in Germany as well. And so far that's going quite well. And so to date, we've replaced over 10 million plastic butts with our biodegradable ones. And so, yeah, we're really, really proud of sort of what we've done so far, but there's definitely still a hell of a lot more to do, and particularly on the regulations. So I suppose that brings me on to what we propose South Africa should implement in the next bill. So first up, obviously ban plastic cigarettes. Whether that's the filter or the packaging, just ban them. I mean, it's a no-brainer really, and everyone would be better off for it. Failing point one, because I'm sure Big Tobacco will be plowing a hell of a lot of funds into lobbying against that kind of bill, because it's a lot more expensive to produce what we make, a biodegradable cigarette, versus what they and the rest of the market make. So, of course, if we can't ban plastic butts, then rather tax plastic elements of tobacco products. So, if it's got a filter or a plastic wrapping or anything plastic, it should be taxed. And this has also been implemented in much of the EU. So that also just gives the government funds to actually clean up and try and recycle, etc., some of the plastic waste that comes out of the tobacco industry. The other thing is that we need to raise more consumer awareness around the fact that cigarette butts are plastic in particular, because, especially in South Africa, there's very little knowledge around this. Everyone thinks, Big Tobacco have done a really good job of fooling consumers into thinking that, this is what a normal cigarette looks like, by the way, in case anyone's forgotten. Into thinking that this, and so I suppose, well, I've got one of these up, may as well show you ours. So that's ours, the green one, and this is the normal one. So it looks like cork or cotton if you look there, but of course it's plastic, and so everyone just throws these things on the ground. So if we can have some kind of warning label like this that goes on the packaging, so in much of the EU, this you're mandated to have this on the pack. Of course, with our product selling in Germany, we don't have this on the pack because it's not plastic. And so, yeah, that just means that consumers are just a little bit more aware, and they might make the effort to actually go throw it in the bin rather than throwing it on the ground, and it ends up in the ocean and the environment and in us and in everything, and it's really terrible. So just more awareness, I think, is what we need. So an additional plastic warning label in addition to the health warning labels. And so in a similar light, there should be an independent body set up to assess sort of how environmentally friendly or unfriendly a certain tobacco product is, and then a code with a number and a color should be assigned to each pack, sort of showing how eco-friendly it is. So hopefully, people won't choose, the least environmentally friendly option. Obviously, on that point, tobacco products should have to meet or all nicotine products should have to meet minimum environmental standards, which I don't think there's much in the way of that at the moment. And so what we propose is, of course, we're the first to admit that cigarettes are terrible, and there should be increased awareness around the fact that how terrible they are. So we're definitely in favor of having a big graphic warning label, like most of the EU has introduced, like this. So it takes up 65% of the front, 65% of the back, and I believe 50% of each side. And they've got a range of different warning labels. This is or graphics. This is actually one of the more sort of pleasant ones to look at, but you get some really ugly ones.
42 different images.
Yeah, which sort of cycle each year they change, so it keeps it fresh in people's minds. And so, yeah, we think that this would be a good move. However, unlike some countries like Namibia, who I believe have implemented plain packaging where you can't brand the pack at all, we're in favor, of course, of having branding on the pack, to deter counterfeiters, but also so that certain environmental advantages can be communicated. Because, of course, consumers have a right to know what products they're using, what's in the products they're using, and what kind of companies they're supporting. So we think we should move to something like this. And then to combat illicit trade, I mean, it's obviously a massive problem. The government's missing out on about half the revenue, and quite simple, easy steps like this can radically change the situation. I think the EU went from having a fairly high instance of illicit trade to having virtually no illicit trade because of these two easy steps. One is adding a tax stamp on the side of the product. You can actually see it poking out here as well. And that goes over the seal of the thing, so you can actually just see if it's been opened or not. Obviously, it's tamper-proof, but it has the price printed on the tax stamp. So that's important because so when we produce for the German market, our German distributor buys this tax stamp from the German government, sends it to us, and we apply it to the pack. And so in that way, there's no pack on the market that hasn't had the tax paid. And likewise, we have a track and trace number on the bottom of the pack, a unique identifying number. So that means that you can track each and every pack from production to the retail shelf and which distributor it goes to. So it just means that there's accountability, and you can see who's messing around in terms of the taxes. So it's very simple. I mean, this is the solution to illicit trade. You use AI to detect, whether there's any counterfeiters on this, but it's an extremely hard thing to fake, I'd imagine. Obviously, I've never tried it, but I mean, it's really complicated. It's pretty much like faking money, this kind of thing. So really sophisticated process to make this. But much of the world has done it, and so the process and all of that has all been ironed out. You can pretty much copy paste it from the EU into South Africa, and I mean, they've got virtually no illicit trade, as I say. So a few more points. We think that flavors in nicotine products should be banned. Definitely, they make them more appealing to children. That's certainly how I started smoking, menthol ciggies, cherry tipped cigars. Now obviously you've got vapes with all kind of candy flavors. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Of course, flavors in all nicotine products should be banned. Of course, perhaps there should be one flavor like menthol or tobacco or what have you, but you shouldn't be able to entice kids with flavors. So that's just a point on that. Single-use vapes. I think the UK banned single-use vapes about 2 days ago or whatever. And I obviously wasn't even using my brain when I wrote this, but it's a no-brainer, guys. They are the most destructive things for the environment. You see them lying everywhere. And I think if we had started this business about 10 years later, it would have been about, making some kind of biodegradable vape, if that's such a thing. The problem is that these batteries in the vapes are just so bad, so hard to recycle, so damaging to the environment. I was actually with a friend on a holiday a few weeks ago, and he dropped his vape into a dam, into water, and it starts smoking and caught fire, and you actually can't extinguish like a lithium ion battery fire with water. So really dangerous as well. Just in terms of the fire risk and all of that. And obviously we've got a cigarette business. We don't often offer vapes, but it's not that we're trying to drive our agenda to sell cigarettes. It's just that, somebody needs to use their brain here and ban plastic vapes, please, or single-use plastic vapes. And then in that light, products that contain batteries, nicotine products that contain batteries, so that obviously extends to heat not burn products and things like that, should have an additional tax on them for all of the reasons pretty much I've mentioned there already. And then the new thing, nicotine pouches. So I won't mention the brands in particular, but I think generally, we really welcome this sort of new products in South Africa because seemingly it is less damaging, although of course we wouldn't claim that publicly. And again, we don't offer that product. But worryingly, the pouches are made out of essentially the same thing that cigarette butts are made out of, a monoacetate, so plastic. And they come generally in plastic containers. So we think that these should be banned. They should be biodegradable pouches because, again, everyone's just going to throw these things around. Or at the very least, they should have a higher tax if they are made out of plastic as opposed to a biodegradable material. And so that's really our presentation done. I hope you guys really consider the points that we've made and appreciate your position in that you really can make a massive impact on our environment. The health of our oceans and our environment is our best weapon against climate change. We need a healthy marine ecosystem to fight climate change. So with that, I'll thank you very much for your time. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me now. I don't know if there's time for that, or email us. But again, just thank you very much for your time and for hearing us. I hope we can do something about this massive issue. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Now take a pen and paper because honorable members are going to engage with you on your presentation. Thank you very much. Honorable members, it's time to recognize your hands. Let me just check this platform. I see this time around, Honorable Michelle was faster than Honorable Van Staden. So I'll start with Honorable Michelle, you are number 1, followed by Honorable Van Staden, who you beat today. Honorable Kumalo, you are number 3. Please remember your numbers, because one after the other will come. Honorable Dr. Leroux, we are number 4. Let me just checking again. Right. Is that the only 4 that are interested to engage today? Okay. Please let us do it once off. Well, Honorable Motubatse, you are number 5. If there are only more hands, or you can't raise your hand, then just indicate. Honorable
Mr. Mutubotse is followed by Ms. Sineche and Dr. Litlape and Ms. Trep.
Sine,
And the last one is Ms. Shabangu.
And then number 9, Shabangu. All right. Thank you very much. In that order, start with Honorable Clark. Number 2, Honorable Van Staden. 3, Honorable Kumalo. 4, Honorable Dr. Leroux. 5, Honorable Mutubatse. 6, Honorable Sine. 7, Honorable Dr. Litlape. 8, Honorable Kleko. And 9, Honorable Shabangu. One after the other, no pause in between. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. van Wijngaarden. Just a couple of issues I would like to raise. Firstly, your company, Woodland, has got the capacity in order to produce these buds that you say are a lot more safer than the general buds that are being used in this country, throughout the country, number one. Number two, obviously, in terms of this presentation, you would have to look at a whole a new set of regulations in terms of a bill that links into what you're proposing. And then in terms of the environmental issue, I do agree with you that, plastic is a huge problem in terms of our oceans and our waterways, etc. But the tobacco bill at this stage really addresses the mitigation of the health risks in terms of people's health, and what smoking does in terms of cost to South Africa and the healthcare system, and how we should mitigate smoking in order to ensure that it is a far healthier environment. And in terms of the issue that you raised in terms of the buds, etc., really would fall into the environmental side of spectrum, in terms of their own regulations and bills. And then you also said that it will not have an impact on the illicit trade. Well, I think we a bit skeptical about that, because I can assure you anything that you can manufacture in this country illicitly happens. So I would like to have that kind of proof where you say, we will not have an illicit factor aligned to the buds that you would produce. And if you could just tell me, how would you stop that illicit trade? Because at the moment we're sitting with about 60 to 70% illicit trade in this country, which needs to be policed and sorted out in order to align the bill to mitigate health risks. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairperson, members, and Mr. van Wijngaarden. Thank you for your presentation. Now, Chair, just a small comment. We were meeting a bit late last night. That's why I'm so slow this morning. Mr. van Wijngaarden, you are producing organic type of cigarette, and that you have put on the South African market here in South Africa. There's people advocating for vaping to be legislated under a separate legislation rather than this bill that we have before us, apart from cigarettes. My question to you is, because you are producing a more greener, environmentally friendly product, would you also say that your product cannot be legislated under the same legislation as the normal tobacco, and that it should also fall under a separate legislation like vaping? My second question to you is, you've also spoken about illicit trade. Now, my question to you is, what will be the solution in South Africa to curb the illegal trade in tobacco? And your product can also, in some sense of a way, be misused in the illicit market in the future. It's maybe, I don't say it's going to happen, but it's possible. And at the same time, take into account the health of South Africans. So my question actually is, what will the solution be to curb illegal trade in tobacco, and that at the same time take into account the health of South Africans? My third question is, because you're bringing new products to South Africa, are you willing to work with government, the Department of Health, and other tobacco companies in this country to amend or strengthen existing legislation where necessary? Do you think that the current bill, which is currently before Parliament, addresses the South African market and its circumstances? And if not, why not? And do you believe that the illicit trade in tobacco will worsen under new legislation, and if so, to what extent? And like I've asked in the previous question, will it be harmless? Will it be effective, have an effect to your product as well? I want to know what My second last question is, what impact will this new legislation have on your product that you've brought to the market? And the last question is, do you believe that the existing tobacco legislation, Act number 83 of 1993, is sufficient enough, or can more be done to police and regulate it? That's all for me. Thank you, Chairperson.
Can I come in, Chair?
Honorable Kumalo, I said members should note their numbers and come one after the other when they
Thank
know
you,
their.
Chairperson. Thank you very much. Let me also join the members who have welcomed the presentation. But I'm having some few questions that I want to ask to the presenter. One, do you have any scientific evidence to share that non-plastic filters can reduce health risk of cigarettes? Since vapes are even creating more environmental waste, would you suggest the same approach to ban all vape products to protect our environment? Lastly, Chair, we heard the presenter in his presentation saying that flavors of disposable vapes should be banned. Can he please tell us more about why he thinks about that? Thank you, Chair.
All right. No, thanks. Thanks very much, Chair, for the opportunity and also welcoming the presentation. Firstly, sir, what is the objective of your presentation in relation to health? Because our focus is on living human beings, on their long life, on their healthy life. Now, what is the objective of this presentation? You are asking this committee to choose as to which of the black snakes in a box is more venomous than the other. That's how I characterize your presentation. Now, is that what you're asking us to do? Because obviously, as a business person, your objective is profit maximization. Now, what is your revenue input to this country? Because you said most of the business have been conducted in Italy, in Germany, and ourselves here have been struggling around unemployment. Now, what is your contribution, your patriotism to this country in making sure that we employ most of them? I'm just asking that question broadly, following on the questions that we have asked. Yeah, so those are the three questions that I want to ask you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also welcome the report. The presentation. Chair, my question is on my worry actually is on the youth. I want the presenter to explain why so many of their products are having flavors. What I want to actually know is what internal controls do you have to prevent marketing and sales of flavored vapes to minors? Because it is evident that the flavors and how they are doing the packaging is what attracts our kids. Why are your products so widely found in schools and amongst teenagers, because as leaders, we go to schools. I remember there was a time I went to one of the schools where there was an operation, and so many flavored vapes were found in the bags of the young ones, and like young, not even your teenagers. So I want to know why. Do they have any internal controls to prevent the marketing and sales of those vapes? Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, thank you very much. Honorable Mutubase, you came a bit earlier, but thanks, we heard you. Honorable Leroux, Dr. Leroux was then on the queue before you. Maybe let me just give him now a slot. Sorry for that, before Dr. Letlape. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the presenters, and thank you for bringing this issue about plastic to our attention. I mean, I think that it's, of course, it's something that we haven't really focused on in terms of the environmental impact rather than the health impact of legislation and economic impact. And I think it's certainly something that we, as a committee, should consider. In terms of the appropriateness, the focus of this legislation is particularly primarily on health. And so perhaps, Chair, we could get some advice in terms of whether this is something that we falls under the legislation or under regulations around tobacco, and whether, and there's obviously the fiscal aspect as well in terms of taxing some cigarettes more than others that we need to consider. But I think it is an interesting proposition that you are, or interesting things that you bring to our attention, and we appreciate that. I think all of us would agree that single-use vapes are also a real concern, both environmentally and also because it increases the accessibility of vaping to the young, and so that's certainly something that I think is worth considering. I wanted to probably don't have the cigarettes already are fairly toxic, but is there any evidence or in terms of the bits of a non-plastic filter versus a plastic filter to the health of patients? I also heard the thing that you said in terms of the chemicals that are sprayed on, and that also theoretically should have a benefit. But I just wanted to get a sense of that, if there's anything that you have for that. And also just wanted to get a sense of the cost of these, a cigarette made with these filters in the way that you've done, like the Woodland cigarettes. What would the cost be of that per cigarette versus the environmental benefits that your cigarettes have? And sorry, and the final question is, are there any other companies in the space of making environmentally friendly cigarettes? I think one of the things that we obviously have to consider is if we do make legislation, we mustn't be seen as benefiting one company over the others. But I think if there are strong arguments for it, there is certainly something that could be considered. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and that is from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is around in your markets in Germany and in Italy. Are the normal butt cigarettes banned? If not, why would you be proposing a ban in South Africa? Secondly, when you ban things, you need to be able to enforce the ban. Do you think when we can't even enforce our current rules of age restrictions, etc., of where you can smoke, where you can't smoke under the current legislation, that banning would be helpful when we have no capacity to enforce? The third issue is, do you have any toxicological studies about the aerosol produced from your cigarettes as to what gets inhaled by the person who smokes and the nature of the aerosol that is emitted from the combustion at the tip of the cigarette. Are there any studies in that regard? And in relation to that, if there are studies, do we have different chemical constituents? If you go according to the WHO and the FDA classification of carcinogens produced by combustion, is there any different profile from your cigarette? And I'm just curious that an innovator and an entrepreneur would want to clean out the market by having competition banned so that you have a free passage. I mean, if it is in a free enterprise, why would you want a parliament to do your work of competing in the marketplace? I'm just curious why you wouldn't just go out there, put out the product, educate, and let the product speak for itself. But more importantly, it's about those aspects. And since there's an intention from this bill to take out cigarettes of any form from the public space, are you in support of all those other issues? I heard that you are not against, pictorials and even maybe plain packaging. But are you in full support of the suite that comes in the bill in terms of further restrictions from where you can smoke and taking it out of the public spaces effectively? Thank you, Chair.
I was number 8. I'm not sure if it's my turn now, but let me come. Apologies if it was not. I thought I was after Honorable Letlape. Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you and members of Parliament, including the presenters, everyone connected in the platform. I greet you. Let me first appreciate the presentation and the support from Smokey Treats, the support of the bill, because they have highlighted in their presentation that they support the bill. Also, I wanted to thank them for their concern on the clean environment, which I also support. But as of now, it's not the purpose of the bill, though it talks to clean environment, because when you say there must be designated smoking areas, you are also protecting the environment, also protecting the second smokers, including children. But looking at their mission, I saw and observed that their main objective is to fight plastic cigarettes. My question would be, do they think they will succeed on their own? Because out of the whole organization that made presentations, none of them have emphasized on the word ban. Even the bill talks less about banning. The banning was talked more when we were talking about, I think it's on vape, on vapes, but not on the tobacco products. I'm asking that question because I think there is less legislation needed if you want to ban something which is not the purpose of the bill now. I appreciated their recommendation on the strategies towards combating illicit trading. There are proposals there which can be relevant to those that will be enforcing when the bill is enacted. They are the first organization to recommend something on the fight towards illicit trading. They are the first. I congratulate them on that. They are the first organization. Out of all the organizations that have presented before them, some were putting the fight of illicit trading as a prerequisite. They are coming with suggestions that may be possible. Some may be possible, some may be not. Also, Chair, I am concerned about their manufacturing. There's also another member that came closer to what I am concerned about. Manufacturing outside and selling inside South Africa. Can they convince us on what they put as a cause to that? Can they convince us? I think, Chair, in their presentation, there is more talk or reflection about the word ban, which I think when they propose as such, the focus of the bill is not on that. The focus of the bill is that when it is enacted, it will result in less intake of nicotine products, encouraging those that are addicted to quit, and also protecting second smokers. Those are health-related issues that were the concern before the bill was introduced, which we think when the bill is enacted, it will result in the following, in the above issues that I have mentioned, Chair. But I think let's welcome the presentation. I think this bill has attracted more public interest, which we appreciate because it confirms that public participation has been encouraged throughout the processing of this bill. One honorable member talked about the issue of flavors in vapes. I wanted to check if the challenge is with the flavors or the challenge is with the vapes. Our concern was that vaping also attracts children and people that are addicted to vaping. Now, this coming up with a ban of flavors in vaping. Do they think that the menthol that they are suggesting, will there be no people that will be addicted to that flavor? I think they must come again on the issue of flavors regarding vaping. Let me pause there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Last hand, Honorable Shabangu, she indicated she might have a challenge. Let's try and see of the connectivity. Honorable Shabangu. Okay. Is Honorable Shabangu able to connect? Okay. She had indicated she is having a problem, but we'll see if then one can really wait for her to send her questions. We'll then help them. Is that Honorable Shabangu? Okay. Let me start. Thank you for your presentation. In your presentation, you made let me start with a very bold statement you made, which I would need you to support us to unpack. You said we do not have clean manufacturers of the products. Now, there's a very bold and a strong statement, please assist me and us to understand where you're coming in. And then I thought you also mentioned that the cigarette stubs also do burn farms. You see, that's why along the national roads you see a lot of that cleaning up and burning next to the road so that the farms are protected when the winter comes in. But that point and the issue of the environment, I'm glad one of our legal experts is here, Miss Isaacs, that she's listening. She's probably going to assist to prepare something that one could share with the portfolio of environmental fisheries and environmental and forestry as to how that could then maybe be taken up to say we might end up approving products that in the long term will have this, because it will probably not be within our preview maybe to be bringing it that we might actually be facing some legal issues regarding this, because as this committee, we are for this bill on the basis of it being pro-health, but maybe somebody can sneak in to say you are also pro-health for fish. Maybe we have to send it to the right people. That's why I'm saying it would be very ideal for Miss Isaacs to sometimes educate me and all of us regarding this, but maybe not in this platform, as to how we can handle that part going forward, because it is an important part to be considered. I also would like to share, to join those honorable members who have said, please explain more, because I also have a very strong wish that we do something about vapes, because we don't have them as yet. This is why that the bill is about tobacco products and electronic products that have not been there before. The current act is strong on tobacco products and cigarettes and all that, but the vapes, hookahs, and all other things are a new phenomenon from the industry. And I would have had my other view on banning singles of vapes because of them that are cheap, easily available, that could be used by the youngsters. If really that market must start and be stronger, then it must be available to those who really have got money, who are going to buy the most expensive part of the vapes. But these ones that we find in children's school bags currently, and those ones that can actually be available easily, if we could then also strengthen that, I would like you to strengthen that thinking that you also brought up in this space. It's also a correct factor that if any product was to be given and it is flavored, it is more to attract a 15-year-old than a magogo and a 70-year-old. A 70-year-old will take that product anyway, whether it is flavored or not flavored. But these ones is focusing and directly wanting to get the young ones to be attracted to this strawberry, vanilla, and all that. So why should you really have a product that must attract people because of its flavoring? So that part also that you are saying, it does sound strongly an issue to be reflected on by this committee. I wanted just to check plain packaging. There are countries in the world that have actually gone this route of plain packaging. And when you listen to them, their thinking is that it therefore allows a visibility of the health warnings in the package. Not so plain that you don't have to show that what type of a product is this that you are selling, but removing these glossy, very fancy and attractive pictures, but having a plain packaging with the name of the product and warning signs. What challenges do you have in that? And some of those countries have not recorded an untoward or adverse production of those. It's just that people have got much more to go and know that these products are this way and that way. So we would think that, yes, there are certain things you have raised that might actually assist us, but there are certain things that we have raised that we may have to share with other committees in Parliament because they may not be within our purview to complete and make regulations on them. Your response, Mr. Adam, your surname was read properly by Honorable Clerk. I would prefer to to just use your first name, Adam, but I'll learn how to pronounce your second name, surname. Thank you very much. Over to you now.
Cool. So thank you all very much for your questions. Really appreciate it. And yeah, some very good points, which I hope we can get around to addressing most of them. I think just to start, well, first to be clear, we don't sell vapes because they're so bad for the environment. Okay, so that's number one. And number two is that some of you thought that some of this conversation might be better suited for another committee, something more to do with the environment. But the simple fact is less plastic, less microplastic in our environment is better for everyone's health, not only in South Africa, but around the world. So, just again, if a small fish eats a bit of microplastic and that fish eats a small fish and we eat the big fish, we get the microplastic too. And obviously it's not confined. Yeah, exactly. It's not confined just to our oceans, but it contaminates our drinking water. It contaminates absolutely everything. I think, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the facts, just how, in beer, I think in 85% of beer or something, microplastic is found. So it's found in absolutely everything, and it's a massive health issue that's only just starting to be explored now. So as to the relevance of plastic pollution to this committee, I think it's extremely relevant. So just to start at the top of the questions, so do we have the capacity to produce biodegradable butts? Yes, we do.
And they can be found elsewhere in the industry.
Yeah, so we're not the only people who can make these things in terms of the filter itself. The world's biggest filter manufacturers are starting to make them, so it's really widely available and starting to be more competitively priced, although big tobacco probably would beg to differ on that point. We just think it's worth the cost in investing in our planet and the health of everything on it. So I have already addressed, the fact that this environmental issue is a health issue. And yeah, I mean, how would we propose to stop illicit trade? It's funny. I can't remember who said that illicit trade. That who was surprised at the fact that we don't have clean manufacturers in South Africa. I don't know. It seems almost laughable. It's a known fact that all of the local manufacturers are dirty as hell. And even big tobacco have been guilty of skipping on their taxes from time to time. At least that's what we've heard from industry insiders who have worked in the industry for decades. So yeah, I mean, really, we are the only clean cigarette company in South Africa with regards to tax. And thank you for commending us. I can't remember who it was in making a prerequisite to us actually offering our product is to do it in the right way. And for us, we know that cigarettes are bad. They deserve to be taxed. Consumers deserve to pay the tax. And that's what we want to do. So it's really important that we clamp down on illicit trade. There's obviously loads of ways we could clamp down on illicit trade. Obviously, one is what we propose in introducing tax stamps and track and trace codes. That already, I think, would solve the majority of the issue as long as the enforcement is there. I can't comment as to why our police aren't doing something about it or more about it. But yeah, as long as there's and a sort of body checking that cigarettes are being sold with the correct things on them. I mean, at the moment, we've only got an SA stamp. So we've actually got a unique track and trace code on our South African pack already. But you probably can't really see it on camera, but there's a small indent. It's got a ZA and it's a diamond stamp, and it's a little impression stamp. And I mean, it's incredibly easy to get. All you do is submit something to SARS customs, right?
There's a lot you've got to have a cigarette brand registered and
But
everything.
it's really easy. I mean, compared to the EU, the process in launching a cigarette product is bloody easy in South Africa. You don't need to submit toxicology results. You just need to have it within the legally allowable nicotine and tar. But there's not even a limit on carbon monoxide per cigarette in South Africa, unlike in the EU, which there should be, by the way. But yeah, essentially, we need more things on the pack to show that it's compliant. Because right now, a little diamond impression stamp that I could probably make in my garage definitely isn't cutting it. Okay, so yeah, I mean, other ways to clamp down on illicit trade would, a thought that we had was to lower the tax. I mean, I know that might be, counterproductive, but if you halve the tax and make it more competitive with the illicit trade, maybe that would solve the issue theoretically. And you would, if the government is currently missing out on half of the excise tax on cigarettes, which it is, or more than half of, if it halves it and just solves the problem of illicit trade, then it can steadily increase the excise tax later, once everyone is actually paying the tax. But yeah, obviously, I'm not an expert on fighting illicit trade. That's probably a better question for BAT. But I mean, it really would be nice to see more done about it, because one of the other issues with illicit trade is that the cigarette product itself isn't regulated as closely, obviously. So say in South Africa, and on the topic of fires caused by cigarette butts, in South Africa and mostly around the world, you have to have something what's called as reduced ignition propensity paper, or LIP paper, where you put these bands of often a limestone or algae around the paper to effectively starve the tobacco rod of oxygen and to extinguish it. And so generally, that's what stops a cigarette from just burning indefinitely when you throw it on the ground. So in terms of the illicit trade, that kind of thing isn't regulated, and so it creates more dangers around that as well. And likewise, say with the bleach on cigarette paper, which is often used, it's illegal to use a chlorine to bleach these papers. But with the illicit ciggies, I wouldn't be surprised if they do just use the cheapest method to bleach their papers would be chlorine, and that's obviously proven to be highly carcinogenic. So it's just another reason to fight the illicit trade, and to regulate the products more closely. And I think Van Staden asked, would we be prepared to help in consultation? Of course, yes. It'd be a privilege to help and add value wherever we can.
Van Staden also mentioned a separate legislation for vapes, and whether we would, want a separate legislation for our kind of product. And the answer to that would be no. We think all nicotine products should be controlled under one bill. There are only a couple of things that differentiate these nicotine products. It's just a method of delivery. Does it have a battery? Is it coming directly from tobacco leaves, like with cigarettes? Is it a pouch that goes in your mouth? Are there plastic components? Is there a health component? And that all falls under one bill, we think. So, yeah, we wouldn't want separate regulation. We think that, well, with regards to the illicit trade and whether different regulation will make it worse or better, or what kind of evidence we have with regards to the tax stamps that we're showing you on the screen, and the track and trace. I mean, the system is fairly complicated in Europe. We're a South African company. This company was founded in South Africa. We started selling in South Africa, and the only reason why we started selling in Europe really was actually to have another market in case a COVID ban or something like that happened again.
Which is also, just sorry, on that point, the danger in having a very sharp concentration of power when it comes to the tobacco regulation. I believe the health minister has absolute authority over tobacco products, and I think to our points that at least the minister of what forestries, fisheries, and environmental affairs or something should have say, just to make sure that something like the COVID cigarette ban, which was obviously later ruled as unconstitutional, doesn't happen again, where there's such a sharp concentration of power. This is supposed to be a democracy, obviously.
And a massive influx of illegal cigarettes,
Yeah. And so Van Staden also asked, what would this bill, what effect would this bill have on us? Obviously, it depends in what form it would eventually come in at, but ultimately, if it's decided that the country goes with plain packaging, as in where there's no branding whatsoever allowed on the pack, other than a plain font saying just what the brand name is. That would be very hard to communicate our relative advantages. We're an extremely small player at the moment. We've got less than 0.1% market share in South Africa. And so, of course, it'd be great, if we could, for the people who do choose to smoke, be able to communicate to them, guys, this one doesn't have plastic in, this one doesn't have all the unnecessary additives, this one doesn't have all the unnecessary plastic packaging. So, to actually be able to communicate to people, we think is obviously important and a reason not to go for plain packaging.
And another point on plain packaging is, for example, Namibia may have gone with plain packaging, but they have a tiny population. It's very easy to police the relatively smaller cities, and it's quite easy to sort of see who's manufacturing, how much is being manufactured, and everything like that. But in Europe, for example, where smoking is very prevalent, that's where other plain packaging markets are. They've only implemented plain packaging once they had their track and trace system in place and a minimized illicit trade. Because if there's no government issued stamp that says this person has paid the tax on a plain packaged product, there's no way to tell whether it's coming from the real source or not. Because it will all look the same. We could make a pack of Marlboro or whatever with plain packaging incredibly easily, and just print it and make it, So it requires that tax stamp to be issued by the government, pre-booking the taxes being paid, uploading them onto a system with the UID so they know that the package has been produced. It's a very extensive track and trace program that Europe have implemented and that we've had to learn the ropes of. And it could be easily implemented by the likes of, say, BAT, PMI, JTI, any multinational. They all have branches that produce with this method and that have to comply with these things.
And that are experts at the system. I mean, we obviously we've had to learn a hell of a lot about it, but I mean, these big multinationals
are selling billions and billions of packs a month under this regulation, and it's all smooth,
I mean, essentially, it wouldn't be particularly onerous to implement this kind of system in South Africa. It's been tried and tested elsewhere. It'd be a pretty easy copy and paste here. And then onto Ms. Kamalo's a question as to whether or not there's scientific evidence to suggest that our sort of eco filters are better than plastic filters for the consumer's health. So what we do know is that since plastic filters were first introduced into cigarettes in around the 1950s, there was a sharp increase in a certain type of lung cancer called endocrinomia. And essentially, there's been no scientific evidence to suggest that a filter, and particularly a plastic filter, it reduces the toxicity of smoke in any way, shape, or form. So it's almost entirely useless. It was a way for the tobacco industry to try and convince smokers that there's something there to kind of just make it a little bit better. So what we've had to do to launch in Germany is to have our cigarette extensively tested, and go through the same tests that every other cigarette goes through, in terms of its toxicology, and in particular testing the tar, nicotine, and carbon monoxide. It's all essentially the same. Our material, which is wood pulp, it's effectively like compressed wood is what we've got in our filter. Should be more absorbent to tar. Although, of course, it doesn't eliminate it completely. It still lets nicotine through, and it still lets carbon monoxide through. So, it's to answer it straight, we don't have evidence to suggest that ours are better, but you could logically deduce that, if someone's inhaling a bunch of chemical additives wrapped in bleach, sucking heated smoke through plastic, I would think that sucking it through something that is would be probably a bit better. But of course, we don't make health claims, and that's actually one of the reasons why we've steered clear of this topic always, is because, of course, we would never make health claims in the public domain. And so, yeah, that's sort of what we've got on that. But so essentially, it's much the same, although our filter may be marginally better for people.
Banning vapes flavors.
So we had another point, but I think, I think that the question was sort of like you needing to now choose between which bad guy to go with, those bad guys or us bad guys. And I think I just like to make it clear that what we do is a necessary evil. I didn't get into this business. We didn't start this business to sell cigarettes or to kill people. We started it to solve a problem, the world's biggest plastic problem, the most littered plastic item on Earth. So, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that you've kind of, if you can't beat them, you've got to join them, and that's effectively what we've done. So another question was, how are we helping South Africa with all of this business done outside of the country in terms of producing in Italy, selling in Germany, and selling in South Africa? So we actually initially, we really wanted to produce it in South Africa, get all the tobacco from South Africa. But because, again, of the lack of clean manufacturers in South Africa, we actually initially had to start manufacturing in Mozambique, which is where we made this stuff before COVID. And we sourced all of our tobacco from Africa, mostly from Zim and Malawi and Mozambique, and a bit from South Africa. But we were really trying to make a proudly South African cigarette that was for South Africans. But again, there's just no one clean to help us do that. And so that's why we're in Mozambique. And then, of course, to launch in the EU, we had to have all of the track and trace UIDs, tax stamps. So that's one of the reasons why we had to produce in the EU. And so now we obviously bring them down from there, which is a great pity because we'd love to be doing it here. But, of course, we still, we are a small business, but we do employ people. We obviously do, distribute our cigarettes. So we use courier companies, storage companies, lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely we do still hopefully contribute as much as we can to the economy, but we certainly could more, which is why this committee should clamp down on illicit trade. And the police should clamp down on illicit trade and the illicit local manufacturers, so they can actually just be a clean manufacturer, and we can keep a bit more value in the country. But I think we've paid over 8 million rands in excise tax, which we hope to grow because we're happy to pay it. So yeah, that's what we're doing for the country, and we'd love to do more. So yeah, I mean, there was just from Miss Seni, there was just, again, this whole epidemic of vapes in schools. Like I've got younger cousins in school still, and just hearing about the amount of vapes in there. It's not like when we were at school, where a cigarette makes quite a stink, and you can really see it. Vapes are so easy to conceal. they're going to be found in schools, I guess. We just need to make them less appealing to children. So, definitely ban flavors in vapes, ban single-use vapes. So hopefully that brings like the price up a bit, so it's slightly less accessible. And ban, the sort of child-friendly branding. They're all branded in these bright colors and all that stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. It really, it's asking kids to pick up a vape. So yeah, really something's got to be done about that. Okay, I've touched on the health effects, but I'd just like to just go back to just remind everyone that less plastic in our environment is better for everybody's health. I'm not a doctor, as I say, but just go ahead, Google Scholar.
Mr. Adams, you are not doing well on your time. Please just check how many questions you still have to answer, because your time is, you are not doing well. Don't go back to things that you already told us. Yeah.
Okay. So are there other companies doing what we're doing? We did have one competitor in South Africa. I don't think they're still around, called Bear, where effectively they just sort of try to copy us, but cut a couple of corners. And they still had a whole load of plastic in their product and additives and bleach, but they did have the biodegradable filter. I'm not sure if they're still around. And internationally, BAT and Imperial have introduced competitors to us in Germany. Following our launch here. So are plastic filters banned in the EU? No, they're not.
But they are taxed.
Yeah, you've got to have that plastic warning label if you do have a plastic warning on your pack. So that's on the previous slide. And if you do have a plastic filter or plastic packaging, you pay an additional tax. So of course, for our products in Germany, we don't pay that tax. So how can we ban, things like plastic filters if we can't enforce the law? I don't know. That's obviously not a problem. That's not a question I can answer.
Just follow the rules.
Yeah. Okay. So a question was that, do we want you guys to do our dirty work and eliminate our competition? We're actually asking you to do quite the opposite. We're asking you to eliminate our unique selling points. So we're the only biodegradable cigarette on the market. We're saying make everyone biodegradable. What we're trying to do is change things, not make a whole load of money. Yes, we want to make a whole load of money. We are a business, but first and foremost, we're trying to solve a problem. So yeah, eliminate our unique selling point. Should there be further restrictions on smoking in public places? I would argue that further restrictions would just be more draconian. There would be more things to enforce, and there's more important things to enforce. Just pretty much the cops coming to me when I'm standing on the street smoking a ciggy, telling me not to. I don't know what or who that's going to help, really.
And it is socially unacceptable in most places. As smokers ourselves, we often feel uncomfortable, and have to walk outside to the street to smoke rather than smoking around our peers. But yeah, just that's another layer of enforcement, as Adam was saying, that would just complicate everything. I think taxes and health warnings, focusing on that is what's needed.
Other than, like, say, around schools, a couple of 100 meters around schools, of course, no smoking, sure. So clamping down on vapes, again, as opposed to cigarettes. In a cigarette, you have a much slower consumption of nicotine. In a vape, you can have like 18 milligrams of nicotine in there. That's like, it's like 18 times what's in a normal cigarette. So just clamping down on that will sort of lower people's dependency on nicotine if there's just less nicotine in these vape products. Okay, touched on that. So our proposition to have one flavor for vapes, I think there was a point that, people might like this flavor, but if there's one flavor, there'll be less things to like about vapes, and hopefully that will reduce how much people use them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so cigarette butts fires, yeah, I've touched on that with the LIP. Yeah, and so just in closing, I think the last point we need to make there is that we're in favor of a big graphic warning label. So 65% of the front, 50% of the sides, not plain packaging. So we want to still be able to brand the product and communicate our advantages, but to have increased awareness around the negative health effects of these products. And I think
yeah, and particularly while the illicit trade is so large, to switch to plain packaging is a massive risk to the revenues of the country. You know, if we lose any more of our cigarette tax, you know, it's a burden on the health system that's not being paid for, and that's quite unacceptable.
Cool. Thank you. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks that your presentation is here with us. And if there are any, and you left your contact details, if there are any other questions you want you to help us clarify, we'll be free to do so. Thanks for your contribution. And of course, this is going to be a part of the collective of discussions and viewpoints that we are going to collate as this portfolio committee. Thanks very much for your input. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. Honorable members, we'll take a 2 minutes break as they are loading the presentation of Miss Alexandra. We'll just take the 2 minutes break so that we could be able to make up on some time taken. So 2 minutes and then this presentation starts. Mhm. Okay, Miss Alexandra and your team, you will have 30 minutes to share with us the presentation that already has been sent to us. We look through it, but this is your opportunity to even go and talk to it. After the 30 minutes of your time, the members of the portfolio committee will interact with you through questions, clarity-seeking comments, and then you'll come back again to clarify on those points. I'm glad you had logged in earlier, so you see how we handled this meeting with Smokey Treats that have just finished now. So we are now accorded the platform to start your presentation. After that, all members will ask one time. You will have to get yourself a pen and paper to write down as they ask so that you can come once off to deal with the collective questions. Thank you very much. You are welcome to start.
Yes, thank you very much for having me today. I'm calling in from Europe, basically from the UK, and I don't think that I would need 30 minutes to present the case. Again, thank you very much for having us. So who is the European Rolling Paper Association? We are based in Germany, but we have an international mandate, which means we can engage with all sorts of governments, and especially revolving around the regulation of our products and also the EU Single-Use Plastic Directive. Our founding members are Mascotte/Giese, they are located in Germany and the Netherlands, Risla, that is located in Belgium. Then we have Republic Technology International, Migueli Costas, and the German Rolling Paper Association. So as you can see, our founding members do not belong to the tobacco industry, and we do not sell tobacco products. We have two companies that belong to the tobacco industry, but of all the 13 members, that's just two. We represent loose filters, filter tubes, and papers. And I think that somebody wanted to say something.
Can you put your presentation on a slideshow?
Yes, I try.
You
Let
are
me
failing.
see.
This is not
My question would be, can you actually see the
okay. You
presentation?
can see it. Let's continue this way. If the other way is going to give you trouble, continue. Thank you.
Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So coming back to who we are, we have been founded in 1995, so we are pretty much a mature organization. And just to give you a little bit of the example of the brand portfolio, this is an excerpt from our brand portfolio. As you can see, there is no tobacco product whatsoever displayed, because our mandate is not to present tobacco products, and our products must not contain tobacco according to the European regulation, first and foremost the EU TPD, the European Tobacco Products Directive. We have also other members like SWM, PDL, Greenbuds, Glatzfein Papers, Cerdia, and AFPC. They are located in different parts of the world, and this is who we are. Again, as I mentioned before, we mainly do interest representation. Our focus is the EU, and the current portfolio in which we engage is the EU Single-Use Plastic Directive that has been touched on by Smokey Treats as well. And I can happily share the information that we also engage scientifically with regards to the International Standardization Organization. And there has been a working group that has been recently created in 2025 on biodegradability. It's the working group number 25. I'm a part of it, and we currently work on methods with regards to filters, just as a little bit of a side information. So when it comes to the bill itself, I would like to highlight that, again, rolling papers, rolling filters, and filter tubes are not tobacco products. As pointed out, we do not have any tobacco component in these products. We have been, or our position paper focused on current definitions in the tobacco bill, revolving around components and relevant products, and the leaflet requirements and the definition of ingredient we found a little bit confusing. This is basically the main statement from our side, where we would like to have it rectified if possible, and we made it clear in our position paper that basically that we came up with a couple of recommendations how to articulate those definitions. Again, it is not an imposition, but we made clear what kind of consequences, and probably unintentional consequences, this would have if those definitions, and especially those definitions, would remain the same. So this is more from a legal point of view. And of course, we write position papers with regards to the legal implications. My background is law. I'm a lawyer. And I'm happy now to take some questions. There's just one aspect that I would like to ask to the committee with regards to the timeline of the bill, because that's not quite clear for us what the timeline of the bill would be and what a compliance date would be required. And then there's also something that I would like to address to Mr. van Wijngaarden. In the EU, there is no tax, there is no plastic tax. Why is that? Because taxation is not the competence of the European Union. It is a fee, an extended producer responsibility fee, according to Article 8 of the EU SUPD. And I can say that because I'm currently in a very, very strong engagement with all the 27 member states to debate the fees and especially debate the fees with regards to products that do not contain plastic, because our companies, and I would like to point that out here in the second slide, our companies, they have transitioned to non-plastic filters years ago. They have heavily invested into research and development to make sure that there's no plastic. There are still plastic filters produced by our companies, but there is a big wave of transition in the direction of non-plastic filters. Why is that the case? Well, if one has read the papers 20 years ago, you could already anticipate and extrapolate that plastic will be targeted at some point. And it has been targeted because there was a footnote in the Inception Impact Assessment in December 2017 by the European Commission. And we anticipated, okay, there is a big wave towards non-plastic filters, or at least there is a regulation that hasn't been really taken seriously by the big industry, so to speak, to say it more politely and diplomatically. But footnotes in Europe, and especially in papers of the European Commission, they usually have a big career. So if you see a footnote somewhere, you can extrapolate already that something is going to happen. And it made some of the players kind of surprised how quickly the European Commission has acted on that, because in 2018 we had a full-blown proposal with regards to the EPR scheme. Currently, all the EU member states, they have tried to push forward the EPR schemes with regards to filters. And of course, we also monitor very much in depth the current negotiation of the International Plastic Treaty. But our member companies have been quite prepared for that because they saw it coming 20 years ago and have not slowly, but I would say continuously started their transition process, and rightly so. So this is basically everything I have to say. My comments are of legal nature with regards to the display ban. Of course, we wouldn't support display ban because it restricts the communication between the companies and also the consumers, and also it kind of manifests what's already in the market. So let's say there is a new product that we would like to highlight or communicate to the consumers. It wouldn't be possible because the communication would be restricted or actually totally cut down, which is why we would like to ask the committee to reconsider the stance to something that is less restrictive. So I have announced it a couple of times. I don't need as much time as 30 minutes. I'm happy to take questions, and I hope all my statements were quite clear to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Miss Alexandra.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that you can't see my family name. My family is Alexandra Michael. I tried to change it when Adam spoke. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it. So my name is Alexandra Michael, but you are absolutely welcome to just call me Alexandra.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, unfortunately, the committee will function in such a way that any clarity-seeking question that you need from Mr. Wijngaarden will be outside the purview of this meeting. He had his details there. You can contact him and then share what you would like to share as your concerns or trying to improve or comment. But for now, I will open to the honorable members of this portfolio committee to engage. It's a pity I could not see your slides up to the last. I
Oh,
saw you did in details. This one we saw, and then what came out after in details? Show us the next
I
slide.
didn't show that actually because it's basically a repetition of our position papers. It basically says that what we've noticed in the bill when looking at it, that there is no distinction between industrial products and consumer products. And industrial products are products like cigarette papers for cigarettes, for finished tobacco products, plug wrap paper, and filter rods. And consumer products we refer to as rolling papers, rolling filters, or loose filters, or standalone filters, or single-use filters. They have different denominations, and then filter tubes. So these are consumer products. And we, when reading the bill, I thought, okay, there is a little bit of a mix-up between those terms, because sometimes you could argue, well, this just covers a industrial product, and in other instances in the bill, I was thinking, well, this now touches on consumer products, and to make sure that this is a very distinct piece of legislation, I think the terms should be as clear as possible, and this is why we have sent you the position paper. So industrial products on the one side and consumer products on the other side. And again, we represent at ERPA both sides. So we have companies that merely manufacture industrial products to the wider industry, and then we have companies that convert those industrial products into consumer products, but they should be regulated differently, as they have been regulated differently, for instance, in the EU.
Thank you very much. Clarified now.
Mhm.
Honourable members, let me take your questions. Okay, just get a pen and paper, Miss
Yes,
Alexander.
it's already here.
The first one would be Honourable Van Staden. He was taking a lead even yesterday, today again. He's the first one, and the second, just on his footstep, is Honourable Clark. Okay, the third is Honourable Motubatsi. Fourth is Honourable Shabangu. And remember, honourable members, you listen to your number and come one after the other, so that I limit the coming in to call you again. The fifth one is Honourable Dr. Leroux. Right, let me see further hands. Okay. Okay, after Dr. Leroux, I think there's now Miss Sinne. Honourable Sinne will be number 6. Okay. Let me just check further. Am I missing anyone? Not yet. Okay. Honorable Letlape, you'll be number 7. Yeah. Okay. Anyone who wants to speak and has challenges to raise his or her hand? Okay. Honorable Dr. Letlape, you are number last. Let us start one after the other. One, Honorable Van Staden.
My hand was up there. My hand was up. I'll be the last one after Honorable Clappe. Thank you.
Number 1 is Honorable Van Staden. Number 2, Honorable Clark. Number 3, Honorable Mutubatse. Number 4, Honorable Shabangu. Number 5, Honorable Dr. Leroux. Number 6, Honorable Sinne. Number 7, Honorable Dr. Letlape. And number 8, Honorable Keko. One after the other. I don't come in between yourselves, honorable members. Just start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, and thank you for your presentation. Is it your only 2 questions from my side? Number 1 is it your opinion that a retail display ban would in effect criminalize a portion of a retail sector in South Africa when this bill come into effect? And my second question is, do you think that this bill, which is currently before Parliament, address the South African market and its circumstances? That's all for me. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to ask Alexander, and thank you for your presentation, just the following 2 issues. While your products might not only be used for tobacco, surely it is used for the combustion and inhalation, sorry about that, combustion and inhalation of other products, and as such should surely be regulated in some way. So if you could just give me clarity on what regulations currently pertain to these products. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chair, also to the presenter. If I define you, you are the carrier. You are the one who, either positive or negative, you are the carrier of whatever, tobacco. Now, let me just get your product, especially on the consumer side, are you aware that it has been exploited at some point for other substances that are both harmful to the product itself and to the users who exploit it for other ulterior motives? For marijuana, for example, for drugs, how would you assist, or how do you hope to assist that they are not being exploited for that? What is your role in helping to assist that they are not exploited for as carriers of drugs, marijuana in particular, because in other countries those substances are banned because we are dealing with health matters. Now, what is the relevance of your presentation or your product to this particular bill in respect of health? So those are the two questions that I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for this presentation from Ms. Alexander. In your presentation, you talk about the rolling paper and rolling filters. Chairperson, I find this presentation a bit misleading and also creating a confusion of what we are here for. The bill is not regulating the paper out of tobacco. So this presentation talking on the rolling paper and rolling filters, for me, it's creating a confusion and it's misleading because it doesn't talk to what the bill is for. And the harm is harm. Are you aware that the chemicals that some flavored papers may contain additive or chemicals that could be harmful when burned and inhaled? Does your company supply flavored rolling papers? And what are the chemicals found in the rolling papers that can be hazardous to the users? Because I think you are well aware that on the main, what is intended on this bill or by this bill is to reduce the health risk and health hazard to the community. So now, if you talk of rolling papers out of the tobacco, these papers, they roll tobacco. So can we get answers on this? Do you think that attractiveness of the rolling paper can shape the human behavior? Those are the questions that I have for Ms. Alexander. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for the issues raised. I just want to check in terms of, from your perspective, how you would change the legislation so that it would be in line with what you think is fair. Otherwise, I've been covered by the other questions. Thank you.
Since there's a pause, I'll come in. My question is similar to what Dr. Leroux has just asked. How these products and the groups that you represent are regulated somehow in the Europe. Where are they regulated? And what would be your advice as to where that regulation should exist? And in terms of them being what is used to create the end product to the consumer, how should this bill relate to those aspects? I understand the fact that you say these are not tobacco products, but just like the devices for vaping are not tobacco products, they'll be in part of this bill. So what would you suggest? Should there be a separate subsection for these issues? Or should it be something that we deal with in regulations? Or should it be something that goes to SABS for product standards? Just clear recommendations from you in terms of our legislative framework. Remembering that we're not an endowed country like some of your countries in Europe. And maybe we could learn from your experience what the smaller, not so rich countries inside the European Union, how they deal with these aspects. Thank you, Chair.
I think there was a seventh person who would like to address a question. I have written it down and I'm still waiting for the last question.
Yeah, Mrs. Treko.
Hold on. Honorable Sine did not come through until Dr. Letlape came to take that slot. Are you still available, Ms. Sine, to ask questions? If not, Honorable Treko, come through. Honorable Treko, come through. And not available. Okay. Let me then ask
on the platform.
Let me ask then my last question. No, I'm asking them to come through. There's nothing more I can do. Now, because you are not a tobacco company, but you manufacture things that they use for those who are in the industry, would this not be relevant to them, sensitizing them about what your rolling paper that you prepare that they use to finish off their products, rolling up the nicotine? Will that not be the relevant space for them there? So that you could advise them, because I mean, they do the finishing products. You prepare what are like ingredients towards that. So I unless I do not understand the focus of your presentation, I thought it would be to deal with them you are not manufacturing tobacco, but you actually like you put an ingredient towards their finished product, and that part comes from your side. Is that not maybe you sensitizing them or telling us that you sell to them all products that do not have these chemicals? Is Honorable Sinebek or Honorable Treko?
Not yet.
Okay. Ms. Alexander, please then support us with your responses.
Okay, thank you very much for addressing these questions to me. I refer to the first question with regards to the retail sector and whether, and this is how I understood the question, whether a display ban or would criminalize the retail sector. That is very difficult to anticipate, to be honest. Unfortunately, I've never been in South Africa and I don't understand, or I have never I don't know much about the South African sector, but I do have people in my organization who do. And I would have to take this question with me to be able to properly answer that. So therefore, excuse my not having enough knowledge about the South African market. But again, I can take this question with me and get it answered in due course. With regards to the second question, so the question was how should it be regulated, and what is the current state of the question? And I think this question has been addressed to me more than once, so I can summarize my answer. So currently in Europe, I'm sorry, currently in Europe, the tobacco products are governed in the Tobacco Product Directive. It's a rather old directive that needed to be transposed in 20 until 2016. It has been enacted in 2014. It needed to be transposed in until 2016. The transposition of the directive was very different from one member state to the other. So there is actually a degree of harmonization in Europe, which means that member states are banned to go any further than the Tobacco Product Directive and their requirements. But there is a so-called opening clause in Article 24 of the Tobacco Product Directive, which allowed especially companies from the tobacco side or EU member states to regulate packaging related aspects of tobacco products. But again, this only revolves around tobacco products. Our products are mentioned in the Tobacco Product Directive in Article 7, paragraph 7, sentence 2. And the regulation is that papers and rolling filters must not contain tobacco. So this is basically the only requirement from the TPD side. Otherwise, our products are not defined because, as I said before, our products do not contain tobacco. Again, there is a little bit of a misconception, even in Europe, between industrial products and consumer products. This is the current state of play. We are also regulated under the ambit of the European Single-Use Plastic Directive with regards to filter tubes and filters. Why is that the case? Because plastic is a part of some categories of filters. Not all of them, because I mentioned before, there are also paper filters, and those paper filters, which are manufactured by the majority of our member companies that are in the filter business, they don't contain plastic. But again, some of them still manufacture them, and these are basically the two main legislative pieces in which or under which our products fall. So it's on the one side the Tobacco Product Directive, which is due to be revised, and then the EU Single-Use Plastic Directive. How should it be regulated? It should be regulated in such that there is a difference in approach with regards to industrial products and rolling and in consumer products. This is very important because first of all, the names or the names of the products are different, and they should be governed differently, just to make it very clear to the user. As we noticed in some jurisdictions that the terms are mixed up, which makes it very discombobulating for us, for the industry, to comply. So our petitum would be to have clear-cut definitions to distinguish on the one side between industrial products and consumer products, because otherwise it's difficult to comply because we don't know what a certain provision talks about, as pointed out in our position paper. I would then forward to question number 3, and I have to read it first to myself to memorize it. It was mentioned that we are the carrier of tobacco, and how do we hope to assist with regards to health issues? Unfortunately, there is nothing we can assist of because our products are used, sometimes with a tobacco product or for the majority, and sometimes with other products. And we have, unfortunately, no contribution with regards to health unless we don't, for instance, use certain ingredients. That could be our contribution to health aspect. But to be honest, I wouldn't call it a contribution to health because, again, it seems more misleading. It seems more misleading to talk about products that are used for tobacco and then in terms of health. So I want to be very clear about that. Coming to the fourth questions, I think, oh yes, it was asked if there are flavored rolling papers. As far as I know, there are flavored rolling papers on the market, but they're not produced by our companies. We see that oftentimes, especially during the Intertabak in Germany, when you see a lot of players who almost seem to provoke the legislator by coloring the filters in pink, in yellow, in green. And it is again not helpful to have those colorful filters, because I think, first of all, the colors doesn't add any value to the product itself. And then second of all, colorful products shouldn't, or color properties shouldn't be used with regards to our products because of a potential attraction to minors. So first of all, again, those companies do not belong to our association. There are also flavored rolling papers. I've seen it many times, especially from companies in the UK. Again, I don't find it very helpful to have colorful papers for the same reason as pointed out before. And I can assure you that we have in our statute, especially in our code of conduct and in our preamble paper, that attracting minors or sell the products to minors or to vulnerable groups is not allowed. So that would be my point. With regards to the term attractiveness, that term popped up, it is difficult to define attractiveness. So what is attractiveness? This is again difficult for us to determine. We had the same situation around how to understand this name, this term, when the TPD1, not the TPD1, the TPD2, the Tobacco Product Directive at EU level was proposed or prepared in 2010. So it was a long time before the TPD has been actually enacted, and there was a impact assessment paper or an assessment paper with an overview of the market, which also emerged and proposed the term attractiveness. Again, attractiveness is something very subjective. It is therefore very, very difficult to put it into a legal framework, and that's why it is difficult for us to actually know what it means. And again, we wouldn't support such a term in a legislation because it opens up a wide range of possible interpretations. Coming to question number 5 by Mr. Delou, the proposition to change. So we made a very specific proposition in our position paper how to approach the definitions in order to avoid unintended consequences. So you may want to refer to our position papers, which goes much more in detail. And again, the main aspect is to distinguish between industrial products and consumer products. And this would be our proposition to change. The next question would be, how should it be regulated? I mean, it is difficult to propose something from the European Union because the European Union tries to be very dominant when it comes to regulation. And this is not just a statement by me. This is a statement also by several commissioners because they want to lead in several areas. And I find it sometimes a little bit condescending towards other jurisdictions to dominate the legal discussion around certain terms. But the TPD is a very robust piece of legislation which guarantees the manufacturer and also all the companies that have to apply and comply with the legislation with a very rigid, not rigid, but very streamlined approach, how to interpret the provisions and what to follow. And this is very important for us in any legislation to be very clear, very distinctive, and maybe follow the TPD. Again, I can only speak for our products, not for novel products. The current situation in Europe is that the TPD is due to be revised because of all the new products. You can't really call them novel products because they have been on the market for some time. Again, I don't speak about novel products, but this is the state of play. So this is going to be revised, and I would probably have a look at the Tobacco Product Directive to see how our products are governed. There is a reference in recital 15 of the TPD, and there is a clear reference to in Article 7, paragraph 7, to our products. Yeah, so this is something that I would recommend. With regards to ingredients, the last question, I have to read it again. I'm sorry to stop at this point. I have to read the question to be able to answer it. Again, I can't really say much about ingredients because it's part of trade secrets. Ingredients with regards to papers used to be governed in one of the German tobacco product ordinances, which has been abolished because the TPD has been enacted and needed to be transposed by any EU member state, such as Germany. And this was a very clear guideline what to actually use in papers and in filter, especially in papers. Unfortunately, this has been abolished. Sometimes the manufacturers still follow that because it gave a very good guidance what to use and what not to use, and we still comply with that because the TPD has given us a void, a legal void, what to put in the papers, which creates, of course, a disbalance between companies that, for instance, are organized in our association and then other players as well, because they can, well, I don't know what they use, but and which regime they follow, but I can assure you that we follow the regime that we have been followed for many years and stay compliant as much as possible. I'm very sure that I didn't answer all the questions because there were many of them, and I'm happy to take any more questions should they arise now.
Yeah, because there's still some time. If there's any member who feels to raise another question, from my side, I think you have supported us by saying you come from Europe, and therefore we can't sprint like where Europe is now. In our development of legislation, there are certain things to learn and to borrow from yourselves. But some of them cannot be done now, overnight by a developing country like us. But that is something that will actually enrich our discussions going forward. There may be a possibility we might see you sometime because this committee might wish to visit a particular country or countries in Europe, of course, because of what we are talking about, an advancement in terms of legislation, even on tobacco. So you may have to host us in your country, in your space, depending how big is your dining room. We are all going to sit there and enjoy.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Opening up for members who want to add, but otherwise I don't see any hands. Look, we'll keep in touch. Thank you very much for your contribution. We would actually take it in that spirit that it's a European-based company that has got these other learning lessons for us. We'll take it from there and see how often we interact with you, even prior to visiting Europe. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
May I ask one question with regards to the timeline of this bill? Is there anything that you can share at this point?
Yes, no, that part you did not. Yeah, so this committee has done what we say in the country. The bill goes into public hearings in the country of 9 provinces where we have come from. We are going to sit down as a committee and look into all those reports that came from various provinces, including this engagement that we have with other institutions like yourself and the individuals who would like to present to us. The committee is working flat out, wanting to actually finish this bill not later than end of September. But then there is another house in Parliament, which is another House of Provinces, National Council of Provinces, where this bill must go into either to amend, concur with what would be the product of this house, because we will then have to present this into the full house someday. That might take its own space, maybe October, November, December. It depends how fast they run with it. But maybe by June this next year, this bill should have been cleared by both houses. We would want to that we want to have it out of our space by latest September, if time allows, if it is possible. But the rest of the other processes are not dependent on us. There was a challenge with another bill that we have sent to our president. Maybe we're not following. We are not following. The president had a bill to be signed into law, and he was looking for a pen for 3 months. So there's this other process again when it gets into that stage, when the president has his own prerogative to consult, get legal opinion, get everybody else to look into, is this a product to put my signature on it now? So that process might also kick in somewhere in the middle of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day. Thanks, man. Bye. Honorable members, as we wrap up, there was an issue here that was raised by Dr. Letlape, which we welcomed. Myself and the secretary are processing the logistics of it, and we may be able to report progress, how to handle that item of what we have listened to, how we get it summarized, how do we reflect on it. So we do expect that we might just have some work in progress report on it next week. Ms. Machalamba, we are just remind us for next week. I know you will come to notices. Are we meeting? This is the last meeting this week.
Yes, Chair, it's the last meeting this week. We are meeting next week on Wednesday with Advertising Regulatory Board and Vaping Save My Life. Okay. On Wednesday only. Thank you.
Only here. Yeah, thank you very much, honorable members, for the sacrifice you did, even including your availability yesterday, and taking a long sitting after a sitting in Parliament. So next week we will not have a Tuesday, but only a Wednesday, 2 presentations, and we probably will not take another evening. But thank you so much for availability.
Chair.
Yes, that honorable Matubasa. Yes.
Yes, Chair. No, thanks very much. I'm just trying to find out. I saw last week we spoke about in between having discussions to discard that plan. I'm just thinking aloud that perhaps maybe we can find some space sometimes just to offload the work so that we must not compile it. It's just a thought, Chair. Thank you.
I've just reflected on that. I don't know whether you were logged off when they started. I said the issue that was raised by Dr. Letlape is receiving attention in terms of its logistics. Some maybe will actually speak to the secretary. We need to just prevent a framework. This is where we come from. This is what has been done. Then we reflect on that. So we are looking at. We will have to report. It may come into a group. When do we do that? But it may be sometime next week with what we have done to date. Okay.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, thank you very much. Have a good day with the rest of the work that we are still going to do. May we call it off a day now. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye.